when you're moving from place to place, place. Good morning, good morning, morning, good morning, morning.
Welcome back to the morning show on Tobago Updates Television, and thank you so much for staying with us. We continue conversations this morning, and we are speaking about the addressing sports in Trinidad and Tobago, the status of sports in Trinidad and Tobago, and we speak with Mr. Jehue Gordon. He is a track and field Olympian, and we're going to connect with him this morning as we begin this conversation. Good morning, Mr. Gordon, and welcome.
Good morning. Thank you very much for having me on the show.
Of course, we're talking now about the state of sports in Trinidad and Tobago, just coming out of the Olympics, Paris 2024. And of course, so many other sporting activities happening where our athletes are concerned, whether it's cricket, football, whatever is happening across the globe where our athletes are concerned, right? And coming out of Paris 2024, of course, we came with no medals, knowing that our athletes, they went in there. When you participate in any event, you're going with the intention to win, right? As a former athlete, you would say, you would agree with me, won't you? And we
Yes,
came home without medals. And conversations in the air, people are talking about all sorts of things and having their own opinions where this is concerned. And I want to know from your own personal experience and from your assessment of our athletes going into the Olympics and their general performance in championships across the globe. How do you feel about the outcomes that we are experiencing right now?
yeah, you've had some really, really good points. As you mentioned, no athlete go into any type of competition expecting to lose. However, we have seen that sports has been progressing and advancing globally, and in Trinidad and Tobago, we do not take sports as seriously as we do. Obviously, there are many variables to add to the equation to make it a complete whole and a sum in itself. But at the same time, sports is a big business. We've seen great investments in high performance centers, in terms of education, in terms of coaching, in terms of technology. And yes, the government, they are investing sums of money into the sport. However, there are many, many things that we are still laboring behind with regards to infrastructure, with regards to facility, with regards to support for the athletes. It is not just always about spending money or giving athletes funding, but there are many, many social issues in Trinidad and Tobago in terms of the way that we respect sports and give it its due diligence.
Right, of course, the investment is absolutely necessary. And you're talking about due diligence here. There are so many assessments that have to be made when you are creating an athlete, when you're preparing an athlete for a championship or any type of event. What are some of the things that we have to look into when we're making these types of investments to ensure that our athletes are in a good place, mentally, socially, physically, because it's a whole list, is a whole person that you're sending here on an international stage to represent a country. And remember, the culture that we have here in Trinidad and Tobago, everybody has an opinion. So you do something good, there's an opinion. You do it not so good, there's an opinion. You do it awful, and there are so many opinions. So you have to prepare this person holistically. What are some of the things that have to go into the considerations that must be made, in your opinion, and again, based on your experience and the things you've been through, to ensure that the athlete is prepared to handle an international stage that represents Trinidad and Tobago?
Yeah, there are many moving parts with regards to making a complete athlete. Obviously, there's the physical assessment to make sure one, the athlete has the competence to perform at a certain level. You must have some form of ability, some form of talent, and it has to be nurtured and guided so that you can perform at that international level. The another aspect is obviously the mental aspect. There's a will, there's a desire, there's a grit and determination about that person that is required to understand that it is not going to come easy. There's persistence and dedication that is required to get to that level also. And outside of that, you need a really great support team that will involve a massage therapist, a physiotherapist, a doctor, a nutritionist, and also someone that is going to work on the mental aspect. Those were some of the key variables that were highlighted along my journey that helped me to win world championships back in 2013 and make myself a two-time world champion.
And you spoke about the things that are needed, right? I want to talk about your personal experience. Um, could you walk me through a time when you didn't perform your best, or the results you were hoping for you did not achieve? And of course, the public opinion. We come in, and especially with the advent of social media, where information gets there in swift time. How did you deal with negative comments that almost could break somebody? How were you able to overcome first of all, the fact that you didn't achieve your goal that you set out to achieve, and then the comments of the population, or rather the public, that came in with all their remarks, especially when we come in from a place where we don't have all the information but have all the opinions.
Well, I would say when I was competing, social media wasn't as big. And obviously, the advancement in technology has made the world so much closer now that everybody believe they are an internet coach and they know everything because they watch sports in general. But many persons, they watch sports, but it is only until you are in that situation. And I know many persons would feel as though they could do it, but I'm sure the way how things are, none of them would even be able to lace up and even go on a track and compete. So some of the things that I had to navigate really, I would say, for example, back in 2012, when I placed sixth at 20 years old in my first Olympic Games in London, for me, I ended up in a very depressed state. A lot was given, a lot of expectation was there on my part, obviously, from a sponsor's perspective, also placing fourth at the World Championships back in 29. So there was a lot of expectation for me getting into my first Olympic Games. And after I placed sixth, obviously everybody celebrated the winners, celebrated the medalists at that point in time. And when I saw, obviously, that everybody was celebrated except well, only these medalists were celebrated. And for me, knowing that I've worked really hard, and everybody was like, yeah, he ain't no good. We use all type of derogatory terms to bring the athlete down instead of really lifting them up. It is not by a fly-by-night situation where athletes wake up and they just qualify for the Olympic Games. It's on a 4-year quadrennial whereby it's blood, it's sweat, it's tears, it's injuries. Some athletes even do surgeries. Myself did surgery back in at the end of 2015. And sometimes we do see the negative comments, but if you're not strong enough, it is something that can break you because some people focus so much on it. The mental aspect when you're at an elite level, and when I say elite, elite puts you among the top 10, top 20 in the world. When you're at that level, the mental aspect pays so much more than the physical aspect. So it took me some time really to get out of that phase. The good thing for me back then is I attended the University of the West Indies, St. Augustine. So coming off of my track, the feats where many would see it as a feat, it was a big accomplishment for me at 20 years old to make my first Olympic finals. I had something to distract my mind. And that is where I was able to take some time, put focus on something else, and really not stand the difficult times that lie behind me, because it was really, really me going out there and giving my best for Trinidad and Tobago. And to see that it was not recognized in the way that it should have been, it really made me feel some type of way. So my having good friends and a good support team, it took about 3 months or so post per se to really dig me out of that hole that I was in. And my focus changed the following year heading into the World Championships, where I stopped putting the pressure on myself to say, here's what, I need to go out there and win. The focus changed to let me have fun, let me understand the journey that I'm going through, and really, really enjoy. So I started giving back, I started helping the younger kids around, and that really changed my shift and focus from putting pressure on myself to really achieve, and also study the critics who believe that I'm supposed to be winning gold medals all the time. Nothing is ever guaranteed. That is the great thing about sports. Betting is big in sports, and that is what makes sports really, really great for viewership. The uncertainty that anybody could show up on any given day, once the stars align for you to compete and win, anybody could take that gold medal or any medals.
That's right, and we saw that at the Paris 2024 Olympics this year as well. And I was just looking at some of the images there on screen, where you ended the race and you were laying flat on the track. That is an indication that you gave all. You gave everything that you had at that point in time. Looking there, and I'm thinking, wow. We sit, as you mentioned, we sit from behind our screens and we look at the race and we make our own assessment. Some of us don't even have any skills, technical skills, or any type of your qualifications to make these assessments. Yet we do. And so I want to say congratulations to you and to any athlete, any person who puts themselves on an international stage to represent a country. Hats off to all of you. Continue to do your best. We have to go for a short break, Jehue, and we will come back with our conversation as we talk about sports here in Trinidad and Tobago. Ladies and gentlemen, we do hope that you can stay with us as we continue speaking with Jehue Gordon this morning as we speak about the state of sports in Trinidad and Tobago. We go for a short break, and as we go, we invite you to help us share the live, share the live, share the live.
Put a smile on your face when you're moving from place to place. Good morning.
Welcome back to the morning show on Tobago Updates Television. We're just about 7:45 a.m. So if you're getting to work for 8 o'clock, you have 15 minutes to get there. Remember to get there safely this morning. We want to ensure that you arrive alive. All right, we continue conversations this morning in studio, and we speak with Mr. Jehue Gordon, and he is a track and field Olympian. And we continue to speak about the status of sports in Trinidad and Tobago. Welcome back, Mr. Gordon.
Thank you.
Right. So we were talking about, your experiences and things that are happening in Trinidad and Tobago. I want to address what are your views, again, from your experience and your assessment in terms of the issues that some of the athletes are facing in Trinidad and Tobago at this point in time?
Well, I know one of the major challenges that we are faced with in Trinidad and Tobago is really the lack of proper access to facilities. So Trinidad and Tobago, we have 5 stadiums across Trinidad and Tobago, and the deplorable state that many of them are in is really a limiting factor. Many persons are believing that athletes should not have access to the stadiums and train on grass fields. But if the grass fields are not prepared for the athletes, then how can they train properly? So it is a situation whereby track and field is not one of those sports that can compete with football, that can compete with rugby and even cricket at the same time, because our legs are our assets. So if we are supposed to go and play on a field, especially in the rainy season, where we have football taking place, rugby, etc., then the chances of us twisting our ankles or hurting our legs, then that will be a really limiting factor for many of the athletes. I know myself, I managed the Carifta team this year, and one of the biggest challenges that the athletes face is they did not have access to the facility. Obviously, there are clubs in Tobago that have access, yes, but there are so many things that can be improved on. The way how things are situated, track and field is not a professional setup. So many coaches, they go to work and then they come to the facility after. It is not a situation whereby you can start preparing for track and field when the track and field season starts. Track is one of those sports where we literally we train and compete for 11 months out of the year with roughly 1 year off. So preparation for next year would have already started in August and continue into September. So yes, some people may say we have the facilities. Are they readily available? Those that are on top need to do some introspection to understand how much is required to get into sport, to compete at a certain level, because it is not something where you could just pick up yourself and say you're going for 30 minutes to jog on a track, to jog on a field, and to just say, here's what. That is good enough for anybody that wants to do track and field. So for those that are on the level that have access to the stadia, to the grass fields in Tobago, in Trinidad, sit down with some of the key stakeholders and understand that 6 o'clock is not a good enough time for the athletes to come out. I know even at the High Performance Center, it opens at 5, it closes at 6. Many of these athletes, they go to work. And this is what you want us to go out to the world and compete against. Athletes have access to facilities round the clock. Yes, so having a regular shift as though athletes are a regular 8 to 4 worker, that is not good enough. Sit with the key stakeholders and understand. We know that we have to share venues, but please let's be more accommodating. Whereas we know track and field has won the most medals and brought the most success to Olympic sports since we have 1948 Olympics that kickstarted the era. So let us really, really take some time, sit with the key stakeholders, sit with the clubs. I know the TAC in Tobago, which is kind of like the head of athletics or supposed to spearhead athletics in Tobago, is not really up and functional, and some work has to be done to get that committee back up and running so that the Tobago athletes could at least have a proper chance with regards to having access to funding, having access to facilities, and even in Trinidad and Tobago, the Atobolan Stadium, well, the Atobolan Stadium is a stadium that is not up and readily available. The Manny Ramjan Stadium, the stands is not usable. And obviously the Hasty Crawford track, the expiration date is going to be up, I believe, in a couple weeks or so. So plenty work to do with regards to access to facilities. It is not something that we wake up on one day and say we're going to make the Olympics. It really takes 4 years. It takes a lot of investment. Millions of dollars are invested to at least qualify for the Olympic, and millions more is required to even have a chance at winning a medal. So when sports is at the bottom of the barrel and we have really high expectations to make Olympians, make Olympic medalists, then come on, we are being really delusional here in Trinidad and Tobago.
Jehue, you're talking here about the access in terms of the times that the venues are available. If you were to be in the conversation, because you're talking now about having conversations with stakeholders to ensure that the access is readily available to the athletes so that they can, train and put in the work that needs to be put in to prepare them for the championships. What are some of the recommendations you would make in terms of making the stadium available? Also, we're talking here about short term and in the long run, because now we're talking about is it that we're gonna have to create a new venue for just strictly for athletes, so it's always available when they need to train? What are some of the recommendations you would have to alleviate this problem?
Well, so given that we do not have many professionals in Trinidad and Tobago, right? We'll just start with that situation. So obviously we're on Tobago now, so I'll talk about the state of Tobago. So yes, we do not have professionals in Tobago at the moment. Most athletes come out of the primary school and the secondary school level. They'll probably get to the track if school finishes at 2:30, sometimes 3 for the primary school. Then you give them like a 30 minutes to get to the stadium. From the time they get there at 3:30, then now it takes at least roughly an hour to warm up. So that's already 4:30. Right? So between 3:30 to 4:30, that's an hour. You need another hour now to complete the workout. That is already 4:30 to 5:30. So we need just about 45 minutes now for an entire cool down. You may have recovery, you may have massages, all these different things would need to be taken into consideration. You also have the fact that sometimes no light is given to these athletes. So sometimes they're there in the dark, coaches cannot time them properly, they cannot adjust the workout. And in events that are very technical, like the hurdles, the high jump, the long jump, etc., times may just need to be extended. And even on instances where they have sports days, obviously you cannot just tell athletes, well, the sports finish in 2 o'clock and you cannot train for the rest of the day. Then how are we being accommodating? Yes, so some form of flexibility has to be given, especially when there are events in the stadium. I know there'll be time to clean up. I know there's liability and all these different things, but at the same time, a lot is given, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. So you can't just try to throw off somebody's training schedule because there's a sports day for a primary school or for a church or something along that lines. We have no problems with sharing, but all we are asking for is the flexibility to understand the basic things that we need. Yes, people complain about funding, but not everybody will have access to the major funding. Yes, we watch up to Jamaica. Jamaica does not have the type of money that Trinidad is currently pumping into sports. Make the facilities available to the athletes, to the coaches, and to those that are involved in the process of helping to build future Olympians, future champions, and future medalists. So that is one of my first recommendations with regards to the times and access to the facilities. I can say we can have more grass tracks readily available if the councillors can make those available. I'm not sure if that is the role of an MP, but track and field cannot compete with rugby and cricket or even football. So I know Shore Park is one of the main facilities in Tobago that the athletes would use there for multiple sports. But at the same time, it is not good enough. We need to have more fields available in the country and in the town side so that athletes can train and be very comfortable.
And Jehue, as you introduce Jamaica into the conversation, I know that there are talks about a partnership between Trinidad and Tobago and Jamaica in terms of training. What is the conversation really, and where do you stand where it is concerned?
So the Trinidad and Tobago and Jamaican government has an understanding. We are trying to share ideas and see what has made Jamaica successful and try to implement those ideas in Trinidad. It is all well and good on my aspect with regards to trying to learn as to what they are doing well. It is not everything that Jamaica is doing that is really well done. We are seeing the decline in terms of their performances on an international level, and we cannot just take everything that is given to us per se. So yes, it's a good initiative. This is all well and good to realize sometimes we are not doing well. We want to take accountability, and we are trying our best. But at the same time, we have to sit with our people here, understand what is required, and know that our culture is just different. There is nothing you could do if people and the culture in Trinidad do not accommodate and respect sports. Jamaica breeds sports. They live. This is their way out. In Trinidad, we are very spoiled. Trinidad and Tobago, we are very spoiled. So we might feel as though, yes, we could get things easy. In Jamaica, it's a lifestyle. Sports is a lifestyle. And I would tell you, the type of funds that is pumped in Jamaica is nowhere close to the amount of money that is pumped in Trinidad and Tobago. As coaches, as administrators, we cannot teach hunger. We cannot teach desire. We cannot teach passion. It has to come intrinsically if you really want to get up and separate yourselves among your Caribbean counterparts. So yes, we want to implement some things, and I implore the minister and the government for doing those things. But at the same time, our culture in itself in Trinidad and Tobago has to reflect what we want to do here and take Trinidad and Tobago to the next level regarding sports. It is not something that is easily accepted in Trinidad and Tobago, and to me it is really, really difficult to see that we have to be begging primary school principals and secondary school principals to send athletes or to even have a sporting program in the school. These are some of the basic and fundamental things that is crying out at this point in time. We are focusing so heavily on academics. Let us try to hone our own from at home. This is where it starts. We build a sporting school. We bring in some coaches from overseas. We understudy them with some of our local coaches, especially with the new generation that is coming up. And we try to develop from at home here.
That's right. And I was waiting for a chance to say, and you did bring it in, talking about the culture which lends to our mindset and the way we do things here in Trinidad and Tobago. As you mentioned, Jamaica is all about sport, the devotion there for the sports. And I feel your passion in all of this, and I do hope that the conversations, the important and hard decisions are going to be made, and that we change our mindset and focus on the things that we need to focus on to build sports in Trinidad and Tobago.
Yeah,
And Jehue,
that is too much to change, really. You see, what a lot of people fail to understand is politics has its role in sports, but too much politics in sports is never good. The only people that are hurt at this point in time is the athletes, and that is why we are seeing so many athletes crying out. We understand that based in the Caribbean here, we rely solely on government intervention, but there is so much politics that is involved in sports these days. This one don't like that one, this one don't want this to get done, and that is really what is hurting sports in Trinidad and Tobago. So I would say we respect the politicians. We understand the role that politics has to play in sports. The foundation has to come from the government. But after that, we have to give the autonomy to those with the necessary technical ability to run it in the way that it should be run. Else we will just keep spinning top in mud.
All right, thank you so much, Jehue, this morning for joining us and having this conversation, very important conversation, of course, as we address the situation of sports here in Trinidad and Tobago. And we do hope that we can have the important conversations with all the stakeholders to ensure we are able to create athletes who are ready for the international stage and, of course, improve performance holistically based on the support that is given from the government. Ladies and gentlemen, we've been speaking with Mr. Jehue Gordon, a track and field Olympian, as he expressed his thoughts and opinions where sport is concerned in Trinidad and Tobago. We're so happy that you stayed with us right throughout our programming. This is where we end the morning show on Tobago Updates Television, but it's not where we end our programming. We head on over to GMT. So we ask that you stay with us. And as you stay with us, we invite you to help us. Share the live, share the live, share the live.